So thank you for that very important question. Right. I think this is the second time this question is coming up within the last few weeks. And I think it's a very important question, and that's why I'm making this video, right? A special video to try and address it. And I think what you are saying, my dear friend, whoever has sent in this anonymous question, is it's all very well for you to talk. You're a doctor. I'm sure you're earning a very good income every month. And all these people who are sitting in your cohort, many of them are doctors and engineers and lawyers and must be earning high incomes. And how does all of this fancy teaching on stewardship and handling money, how does all of that translate to somebody like me? I'm earning only 20,000 a month. And out of that 20,000, 5 or 6,000 is going on rent, right? And children's education. And it's all very well for you to say, put in deposits and invest all that you can and all that. But how is that helping me, right? And so I just want to address this question because it's a very, very important question. The first thing is, you know, it's the principles that I have talked about in this course are just simple wisdom. All right. There's some wisdom that we've taken from the Bible, biblical wisdom, God's plan for stewardship, and various ideas from the Bible about how we can handle our finances well, and wisdom from the world of finance and how simple principles that we can follow. Now the principles are the same. All right, the principles are, I think, universally applicable. They are same for the well-to-do and same for the poor. Right? They're same for people who are below the poverty line and same for people who are well above the poverty line. The principles are the same. The scale may be different. Scale, you remember when an architect is building a house, you go and tell him, I want to build a two-bedroom house. And he will make a small model of that two-bedroom house. It's made to scale. The two-bedroom house he's going to make later. But now there's a small model, the length and breadth and height, and it's all the same. The proportion, how much is going to be sitting room, how much is going to be bedroom, and how much is going to be the toilet and kitchen, all made to scale. See? And that's the point I'm trying to make. The principles are the same, and even though the scale may be different. Okay. So the scale to which somebody who's earning 1 lakh or 2 lakhs per month or more, the scale on which they are saving and investing and spending and giving will be different from the scale with which somebody who's earning 20,000 a month is investing and saving and giving. The scale is different, but the principles are the same. So what are these principles and how do they apply to you, who's earning 20,000 a month and 5 to 6,000 is going on rent and so on, right? Now remember, let me just talk about these principles one by one. You remember the first or one of our first classes. I think in the first class we talked about compound interest, right? Let me just show you a compound interest calculator. You just do a Google search for compound interest calculator and you see this first one on top. It's actually an American site. Just click on it and you'll see this compound interest calculator. All right. All right. Now just ignore the fact that everything will be in dollars. We can read it as rupees. Let's just do some compound interest calculations. Can you save out of the 20,000 that you're getting? Can you save 500 a month? 500 should be possible, isn't it? I mean, most of us can afford. Even a very poor person. I have worked with Mahadalits, right, in rural Bihar, and even they, with some planning, can save 500 rupees a month. So let's start off with 500 rupees. All right, just a simple basic 500 rupees. So initial investment, right? Let's say it's zero. You don't have any money to start with. Like I said, ignore the dollar sign that will come. Just read it as rupees. All right. Let's say you are going to contribute a monthly contribution of 500 rupees. That's all. All right. And you'll start off, let's say for the next 5 years, every month you're going to put 500 rupees for 5 years. Okay. And let's say you're going to make a interest rate of, let's say, 6%, because it's a recurring deposit. Let's say a low percentage, okay? Actually, if you put in equity, and I'm going to talk about how even you can put in equity, right? But actually, if you put in equity, you can reasonably expect an interest rate of about 12% over time, right? Over 10 years, you will get a regular equity interest rate of about 12% is a sort of bare minimum that you can reasonably expect. Okay, but let's say 6%. Okay, and it's going to compound every year. Let's calculate. Okay, you can see over 5 years, right? You've been putting 500 every month. Let's open the table. You've been putting 500 rupees every month. So at the end of 5 years, you have put in 30,000 rupees. And that 30,000 actually, because it has been earning compound interest, has now become 33,000. So you made some profit just by putting 500 rupees every month. Okay. Okay, great. Now let's say instead of 5 years, now you're going to keep on investing without giving up, right? For 10 years. I've just changed that one number. Everything else is the same. I've just left it as 10 years. Calculating. You can see the gap is increasing, right? You have put in 60,000 rupees, and now actually you have gained 19,000 just by putting 500 rupees per month over 10 years, right? Now let's increase it even more. Let's say the same 500 rupees. That's all. But you put it for 20 years, every month, faithfully, without skipping a single month. Regularly, faithfully, you put in for 20 years at just a reasonable interest of 6%. You can see the gap is getting wider and wider, right? You're increasing. You put in 1,20,000, right? Over 20 years. And it's become 2,20,000. You've gained a lakh by just faithfully putting 500 rupees every month. And this is in a recurring deposit, right? In the bank, which is giving you only 6% interest, right? Not more than that. Okay. Now just imagine if you can raise this interest rate to 10%, or let's say 12%. You remember I said if you put in equity, 500 rupees a month, put in equity, 12% equity for 20 years, right? Let's calculate. Whoa, you can see how the gap is. You've put in, let's see the table. You put in 1,20,000 by just putting 500 rupees every month for 20 years. But that is now worth 4,32,000 rupees. Just by the miracle of compound interest. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. What am I trying to say? Right? Don't compare yourself at the moment with somebody who is putting in 1 lakh a month. I'm also not able to put in 1 lakh a month. Put what you can, right? And keep putting it faithfully, little by little, diligently, little by little, every month. And over time, by the miracle of compound interest, you will have a saving and an investment and something to hand over to your children. All right. So that's the first principle. Don't compare with the others. You run your race faithfully, right? Don't skip a month. Don't take a holiday. In a holiday from investing, right? Whether you go on a holiday or not, whether you're working or not, whether it's, whatever it is, you faithfully put in your 500 rupees every month. I'm saying 500. Maybe you can put in 1,000. All the better. Put in what you can. And which brings me to my next point. How do you know how much you can? And remember, we talked about a spending tracker. Track your expenses. You know how much you're getting. Do you know how much you're spending and where it is being spent? Find out, right? This is you taking charge of your life, right? And you're saying, I want to know where every rupee is going, right? Write it in a book and study it at the end of the month, or write it on an Excel sheet, or use this free app that I told you about, Toshal, right? Actually, for 1 month or 2 months, track your expenses and find out how much is going on. Okay, you know how much is going on rent and how much is going on children's education. That's easy. But how much is going on all the other things? Where are all the other rupees going? Find out. And after you've tracked for 1 or 2 months, look at your data and you will be able to divide your expenses into three categories. Okay. The first category is unavoidable expenses. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't change it, you can't increase it, you can't decrease it. Like rent. Rent is not going to go up and down every month. It's unavoidable, unchangeable expense. Right? The second is something you can do something about. Changeable but necessary. For example, let me give you some examples. You are buying all your fish from one particular market, right? And you think you have done your studies and you found out how much you're spending every month on fish and meat. I'm not saying you have to stop eating fish and meat, but you can find out where maybe the same fish and meat is cheaper. Like you can say, okay, I'm going to wake up early in the morning and go to the main market where the fish is being sold early morning at a low rate. I'm going to buy fish there. By doing this, little by little, you're saving maybe some 200 rupees a month, right? Or 300 rupees a month. You're saving. And think of that compounding over years, right? How much you can much you can save by spending the same, I mean, spending on the same expenses, but now being little strategic and shrewd about where you're buying. Or you may find, if you buy atta, buying a 10 kg bag is cheaper than buying a 5 kg bag, right? And if you buy it on Swiggy or Instamart, or you buy it on, Big Bazaar, or you go to some big grocery and buy it, it may be cheaper than buying it from the small kirana dukan. I'm not saying, I'm saying you think, right? About how you can, these are necessary expenses. I'm not saying you have to avoid it or cut it out of your life, but you are now being strategic and saying, I have to spend money on these things. How can I save little money by doing it, from a big market or doing it from another small market or finding out some wholesale dealer or taking some advantage of some coupon that I get, right? And trying to cut down my necessary expenses. The third category is unnecessary expenses. Again, I'm not saying you have to cut out all your unnecessary expenses and all the fun from your life, right? But I'm saying you can be strategic. And you can, by doing this tracking exercise, you can start realizing how much of money is going on various other expenses. Like I said, the principles are the same, right? The scale may be different. Somebody who's earning in lakhs and somebody who's earning 20,000. The scale may be different, but the principles for both are the same. Both need to go through this exercise of tracking spending and classifying their expenses and thinking, on the one hand, how they can cut down their expenses. At the same time, what I would like you to think is how you can increase your income. Remember, savings is income minus expenses. Income minus expenses. And so you can increase your income and decrease your expenses, and you will be able to increase your savings. Now, how to increase your income? Yeah. Maybe you can think of what we call a side job, right? Your main job you're doing, but something else you can do. Maybe you can teach people how to swim, or you can teach them how to play some instrument. You think for yourself, what are the talents and skills that you have, right? That you can use, right? Or is there some other talent and skill in your family? Maybe your wife can do something small so that the family income goes up, right? Maybe there's some things that you can do to increase your income wherever possible. And you're strategic and you're thinking, how can I increase my income while cutting down my expenses? Maybe there's some course you can go for. Maybe that's called upskilling. You can increase your skills, you can increase your education status so that you will now become eligible for a better job, right? Or you'll be able to earn a slightly better income. So you think, can I upskill? That is investing in yourself so that you will be able to earn a better income going forward. So increase your income and decrease your expenses as much as possible. Okay, now let's put that out of the way. Now, how do you manage now with this 20,000? Right? You've done your spend tracking. You've identified some of your expenses in these three categories, like I said, and you're trying now to decrease your expenses and increase your income. And you're trying to increase your savings. Now, the first important principle that I would like you to know is pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. What does that mean? See, many of us, we get our income and we pay the rent and we pay the children's fees and we pay for all our expenses and groceries and everything and everything. And finally, at the end of the month, we look at our purse and say, oh, how much is left? Ah, there's so much left. So let us save it. Okay. Actually, a better advice, you remember that illustration of putting the big rocks in first. A better way is to think, I have to save. This is non-negotiable. Otherwise, some emergency happens or something and I will get wiped out. I will go below the poverty line. I will go into debt. Saving is non-negotiable. I must save, right? It's a big rock. And so I'm going to put this big rock in first. And that's what I mean by pay yourself first before you pay the rent and you pay the children's education. You know now by doing your spending tracking how much you can save, right? So let's say you have decided you're going to save 500 rupees or 1000 or 2000, whatever it is, that after you have done your tracking exercises, you have figured it out that I can save this much of money every month. Now pay yourself first. So as soon as your income comes in, take that amount of money that you have decided that you can save, right? Take that money and put it into your savings. Don't touch it. Let it start earning compound interest. Pay yourself first. Okay. There are other big rocks also that you need to pay. Pay the rent and pay the children's education, give to the church and to others, right? Do all those big rocks. But one big rock is paying yourself and pay yourself first. Okay. Now, what are you going to do with those savings that you have decided that you're going to save? Principle one is build an emergency fund. Okay. And that is these deposits that I was talking about, short term, fixed deposits, recurring deposits. It's an emergency fund. Little by little, if you have decided you can save 1000 rupees, 500 rupees, save that. Put it into a recurring deposit, right? Don't touch it. Let it increase 500, 1000, 1500, 2000, little by little by little by little, till you have reached 3 months expenses. All right. And keep those 3 months expenses in a deposit by saving little by little every month, faithfully paying yourself first. So little by little, in that way, you have built an emergency fund so that anything happens to you, you fall sick and you don't lose your income. You lose your income. For 3 months, you can use these savings. So that's the first step. Build an emergency fund. Second, make sure you're insured. Not as a investment, but as a protection, right? Insure yourself. There are government schemes that you can use. There are private companies that you can use. Explore the government schemes since your income is low, right? Health insurance, so that if you fall sick, you'll be able to get good health care at some institute which is recognized. So take a health insurance. Make sure you and your company, your family are covered with health insurance. Take a life insurance so that if something happens to you, your wife and children will be able to, continue to manage. So, and there are government options, right, which are relatively cheap in life insurance as well as in health insurance that you can explore, right? In different states, there are different options. Make sure you're covered so that if there's a sudden health emergency, you will not suddenly go below the poverty line. So set up an emergency fund, little by little by little by little, set up an emergency fund. And at the same time, make sure you're insured. And third, set up savings towards some expense which you can see coming down the line, right? Children have to go to college or something. Start saving up for that. And how do you save? In recurring deposits and fixed deposits. Small amounts, but all these amounts will slowly collect compound interest. Okay. And like I showed you in the compound interest calculator. And once you have set up 3 months emergency fund and some savings for these expenses which you can see coming. Now you think to yourself, finished, my emergency fund is stocked, right? I have my insurance is covered, and I have some planned savings for the other expenses which are coming up, right? Now, what I can save, I don't need for the next 7 years. Think how much you can save every month that you don't need for 7 years. That's savings for your retirement, savings for 7 years in the future. And those type of expenses, those type of savings which you don't need for 7 years, you can save in equity. All right. Now, how equity is going about, I'm going to talk about in future classes. Equity, you can invest in the Nifty, you can invest in various stocks and shares, you can invest in mutual funds, right? There are exchange traded funds. I'm going to talk about all these ways of investing in equity. But like I said, if you invest in equity, you can expect a higher interest, right? Instead of 6% from a mutual fund, from a fixed deposit or a recurring deposit, you can get maybe 12% from a equity. You can expect that amount will come to you. So once you have set, just starting off with 500 rupees, which I'm sure you can manage, right? Set up an emergency fund, and once your emergency fund is set up and you've made some savings for the planned expenses that are going to come up in the next 7 years, now you start thinking, okay, now this money, the same 500 rupees and 1000 rupees, I don't need now for the next 7 years. So I'm going to start putting it in equity, right? And you can start earning a slightly higher interest in equity. Okay. The final principle, like I said, is get out of debt. Okay, because debt eats up into all your income, and I've recorded a separate video on that, and it's already available on the group. So get out of debt if you're in any debt at all. I think the point that I'm trying to make is the principles are the same. Increase your income in whichever way is possible. Decrease your expenses in whichever way is possible by tracking it and finding out where you can decrease. And pay yourself first, because you know how much you can save. Don't wait till the end of the month to do it. Do it at the beginning of the month. Do it faithfully. Do it diligently. Don't skip a month. Don't take a off month, because then you will lose the benefit of compound interest, right? Keep diligently putting in little by little by little by little and earn compound interest over time. Go to that compound interest calculator that I just showed you, right? Do a Google search, find a compound interest calculator and play around with the numbers, and you will see how compound interest works. If you put in 500 rupees, what's going to happen? If you put in 1000 rupees, what's going to happen? If the interest rate is 6%, what's going to happen? If it's 10%, what's going to happen? Try it out. And then you will see the miracle of compound interest, and you will see how small investments, faithfully put, will accumulate interest over time and be something that you will benefit you and your family as you move forward. All right. So don't get overwhelmed and discouraged comparing yourselves with others, right? You run your race in the race track that God has made for you. You be a faithful steward of the talent that God has given you. Don't compare with somebody else who has more talents or less talent. Run your race, you be faithful. The same principles apply. And even if you're below the poverty line, little by little, by being strategic and wise as a good steward of what God has given you, you will be able to grow, right? And you will be able to take care of yourself and your family in a better way. You will be able to contribute to God's work wherever you are placed, and you will have something to leave to your children and grandchildren after your time on earth is over. Okay, I hope this was useful to you. Take care, and please do reach out if you need any more clarifications. Thank you. Bye bye.